everybody. I'm Rachel Saunders, and I'm here with a ton of people from the Firebase team. They're all Android experts, and we hope that we can answer a lot of your questions today. And I hope everyone's doing well and enjoying the conference the last couple of days. It's been really cool. I've watched a couple of the sessions, and I've seen a lot of Firebase questions in a lot of the other sessions. So hopefully we can get some other experts in here to answer some of those questions if they weren't answered in other sessions, or you have some burning questions that you haven't been able to ask in some of the other sessions or in some of our other interfaces. One of the things that we have in this session, which we're trying out new, is a poll. So if you are looking at Talk right now, and on the right-hand side is the Q&A. If you click right beside it, you'll see a poll. And we're just kind of getting a feel for the room. How many of y'all know about Firebase? How familiar you are with Firebase? And just to get a feel for what types of people we're talking to today. Oh, wow. We have a lot of people that are like more than 12 months. That's great. And a lot of I'm an expert. Maybe you all can answer questions for us too. And then just started and 6 months are about the same. Oh, it's levering out. Yep, we're all talking about the poll that's happening on the right-hand side in the Slido panel in Talk right now. So if you click on polls, you can answer a quick question about how familiar you are with Firebase. This is amazing. Have you all ever seen this many Firebase experts in or more than 12 months?
I say, Rachel, we should all hang up and just let everyone answer the questions for each other, right?
I know, right? It's great. I love this. There's going to be some really good questions then.
That's my fear. We might not know the answers.
So one of the things about the Q&A today, so we don't have the ability to answer the question directly in chat, so we'll be answering the questions verbally, of course, but we actually do get a download of all of the questions afterwards. So you might actually, if your question doesn't get answered today, you actually will be able to possibly see your question be answered in one of our other forums that we outreach to the community. So if your question doesn't get answered today, or it doesn't get answered in completion, be assured that we will try to get those answers out into some other forums and some other spaces as well. So let's go ahead and let's walk around the room if we can and have an intro of everybody. Puff, since I'm looking at you on my screen right now, do you want to give yourself a quick introduction, what you worked on, maybe a fun fact?
Sure. I'm Frank, or Puff, longtime Firebaser. I started using Firebase when it was in beta. So that's a long time ago. And I joined the team in 2015 or something like that. My favorite Firebase feature is real-time synchronization still. So, and I do lots of technologies, including web and Android and Flutter these days. So.
Yeah, Puff's one of well, you'll always see his name on most Stack Overflow questions. I think he's like one of the top contributors on Stack Overflow as a whole.
Yeah, I answer a lot. I love answering questions about Firebase. Normally I'm typing. Today we're going to be talking, right?
Yep. Let's see. The next person that I'm going to single out is Vlad. You wanted to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Vlad. I work on the Android SDKs. I lead the SDK effort at Firebase, and essentially, I help build the core infrastructure to make sure that teams build high-quality SDKs faster. Fun fact, let's see. So recently, I had to become very proficient at Minecraft to help my 5-year-old son not get very frustrated when things don't work for him.
I love it. I think we've all had to learn something new and random for this whole like work from home world that we're all in, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see, who else do we have on the call? We also have Paul. Do you want to give yourself an introduction?
Yeah, hey everyone, Paul Ruiz. I'm a developer relations engineer. I'm actually with the support team on Firebase as well. I've been, about 7 years as an Android developer, but I've been doing mostly Flutter for the last year or so. Background is also in kind of IoT as well as Android. Fun fact is, before I got into tech, I was actually a zookeeper.
We love this fun fact about Paul. He tells it every once in a while and shocks us all that he has such a diverse background and such a cool background. What was your favorite animal that you worked with, Paul?
So I mainly worked in the hoofstock area. So I worked a lot with like giraffes and whatnot, but there's this one kind of antelope called the addax, which I just always liked because what it'll do is it'll follow you around, kind of like a dog, because it just thinks you're going to feed it and whatnot. And they're just super friendly, and these really cool like trolley antlers and whatnot.
That's so crazy. That's such a different background. I love it. We also have, and finally, but not least, is Sam. You want to give yourself an intro?
Hi, everybody. I'm Sam from Developer Relations. Been doing Android development for a very long time. There's no evidence because all of my apps have been banned from the Play Store for one reason or another. And fun fact is I recently moved to London, so I'm really crashing droidCon Americas.
Yeah, it's very late for Sam, so we'll be very forgiving if he like randomly falls asleep on us because it's very late where he is. So I'm Rachel Saunders again. I'm also in developer relations. I'm actually a tech writer. So a lot of the docs that you see out on the Fire site or on our Firebase docs pages, you'll see my stuff or in code labs and things like that. I work on all sorts of different products across the whole like Firebase ecosystem. But I think we have quite a few questions. We have 8 questions right now. But yes, ask any question you want. Like for all Firebase events, we welcome all levels of developers. So if you have a seemingly beginner question, that's great to ask. We welcome those types of questions just as much as we welcome like advanced or specific use case questions. But we will do our best to answer all of your questions today. So I think that if you don't already see the questions, are we showing the questions right now? Yep. Okay, so let's go ahead and start answering some of these things. We have a first one that talks about emulators. So maybe Sam, you might want to take this one. When will Firebase include Android Cloud Emulator in their list of features?
I actually don't think this is about the type of emulators that I work on, which is Firebase emulators. I think this is asking about
it isn't.
Like maybe a test lab type thing, but I honestly don't fully understand what Android Cloud Emulator would mean. And in the Zoom call, it's hard to clarify. I feel bad.
You're absolutely right. This is not the emulators. What are the emulators, Sam?
I do work on the Firebase emulator suite, which is a bunch of local versions of our services you can run on your computer, and they work great with an Android emulator, but not in the cloud.
Right. So maybe the person who asked that question, maybe you can clarify a little bit, maybe post a link for context, and we can cycle back to your question and maybe be able to answer you with a little more context on that. Apologies for not having the answer for that one. Let's see, the next one is a Crashlytics question. Issue with Crashlytics reporting after the November upgrade.
Yeah, so I mean, I can speak a little bit to this. Yeah, so essentially the upgrade was kind of rolling out gradually over time, and it wasn't like kind of a immediate migration. So as we were migrating, like we had some minor issues, but there was no like major problems, and this is why we were confident that we can now do the upgrade.
Yeah, if you haven't upgraded yet to the new SDKs, make sure that your new SDK, make sure you do that. I think you actually, you have, I don't know how much more time you have, if it's even like, what's that sunset date? Anybody know that?
Can I add one thing there?
Yeah, definitely, Sam.
I heard from a few people that when they upgraded, they did not see crash-free users anymore, so they thought that their crashes were broken. But you need to add the Firebase Analytics dependency to your app to get that specific stat. The crashes are all there, but the percentage of users comes through analytics.
Mm-hmm. There's a really great migrate doc, if you haven't seen that, and it actually walks through the different steps that you have to do to completely migrate over, and you'll see that in there is actually the steps for adding the Firebase SDK for Google Analytics, as well as doing things with answers as well, and making sure that those get converted over as well. So those are a couple things in that migrate guide that you'll find in the Firebase documentation is about migrating from Fabric. Anybody else want to mention anything about Crashlytics? All right, next question. Let's see. Oh, okay. Oh, I was hearing about this in an earlier session. Are you planning to release Firebase libraries for KMP, the Kotlin multi-platform shared code? In particular, the most useful would be Analytics, Firestore, and Auth.
Vlad?
Vlad, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, so we don't have any immediate plans on our roadmap to do that. What I will say, though, is that I think there is a Firebase multi-platform effort that's not affiliated to Google, and I think it just wraps platform-specific APIs. So it's possible to use that. Yeah, Sam, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, that one, I believe the organization is called Get Live app, and they have a community-sponsored SDK. And so if you're interested, check it out and maybe contribute to them. And, you know, we're always looking to change our mind. But right now, Kotlin multi-platform is probably a little early for us.
So speaking of Kotlin, are there any plans to add Kotlin support for Firebase Cloud Functions?
I mean, I think we have at least the KTX library for functions.
We do.
I'm not sure what specifically you're looking for.
I think this would be server-side Kotlin for the runtime.
Okay.
Which nobody is working on at the moment, right? We'll be honest about that. That doesn't mean it's not possible, but you would rely on cross-compilers at the moment.
Yeah, we're looking into deeper support with Cloud Run, which can run anything you can run in a Docker container, including Kotlin, and that's probably where you'll see Kotlin next if you see it on the server.
Yep.
Great question. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. What benefits, so this is a dynamic links question. What benefits does Firebase dynamic links offer over branch links?
Unfortunately, that's one that we won't be able to answer. Right? This is like we can't do a competitive comparison here. Right? Like I'm quite sure both products have their own sets of unique use cases, and I think both are wonderful products. You should pick the one that fits your use cases best.
Let's see. Oh, great. Oh, I just want to call out, someone actually did a really great thing. The unofficial Kotlin SDK that Sam and Vlad mentioned is GitLive app, Firebase Kotlin SDK on GitHub. If you have answers to questions, we very much support having community contributions to answering questions. So if you have resources or anything that you'd like to share in the Q&A, we really support that. We think it's great when the community gets involved with answering questions and sharing resources with each other and learnings with each other. So feel free to use the Q&A as also like a place where you can maybe post some answers to some people or some more context or a follow-up question. We really like when y'all like work together to solve problems. It's really awesome to see. Let's see. Oh, this is a great one. So is there a section where we can suggest ideas for Firebase? So this is a thing about feature requests or things like that where you want to know, where you want to do new things for Firebase or you want to see things happen for Firebase. Puff or Paul, you want to answer this?
Yeah, so it's actually at firebase.google.com/support. We have an area where you can submit feature requests, and it'll go through our support team, and then that gets kind of bubbled up to us, and we actually discuss it with our engineering teams during various meetings and whatnot. Just kind of set priorities and say, hey, this is what the community is really looking forward to and really wanting. That way we can actually improve the product to make sure we're getting in all that input.
Can you say that URL one more time, Paul?
Yeah, it was firebase.google.com/support.
Awesome. Puff, I think you were going to say something too.
Yeah, if you're, because this is a great catch-all place for finding feature requests, but a lot of our SDKs these days are open sourced, and that means that you can find the repo in GitHub. So if there is a repo and you know what it is, it might actually be better to file it on that repo straight away, because then the engineers get it without first going through the support team. Either way, we'll get it in front of the engineers. That's not a concern, but we love seeing the feature requests being filed also on the open source repos, because honestly, there's great tooling also for what most people like, right? We can discuss them out in the open. And I've been working through our releases recently, and I can see that quite a few of the features that go into the SDKs now actually come from such reports on GitHub repos also. So it's really cool to see that loop being closed.
Yeah, definitely. While we're on the subject of the open sourcing of our repos, Vlad or Sam, is there anything you want to point out for folks about that, how we do our open sourcing, or anything about what the community can do with our open source docs or open source SDKs?
I'll leave that to Vlad. It's his repo.
I mean, yeah, so definitely I would, again, emphasize what Puff said. Just like feel free to file issues and bugs for us. You will find appropriate templates there as well. So for the KTX support, for example, we've had a bunch of contributions from the community. And so those are always welcome and are encouraged. And yeah.
Yeah, we definitely love our community support. The KTX effort, and actually was driven enormously by the community. So if you want to contribute, we really welcome those types of contributions, because it builds a product that the community wants. And so it's really nice. And we had really great effort on that front.
Yeah, and I think in the talk here, we have Rosario, like the author of at least 2 KTX libraries. So I wanted to call him out.
Hey, Rosario. Let's see, what else do we have here? Let's see. I'm not exactly sure. So any plans for a Crashlytics mobile app?
I've heard this question a few times. As far as I'm aware, no. But they're working on, the console has slowly becoming more PWA-ified, which I know PWAs are evil to Android developers, but the console is becoming much more mobile friendly over time, and I think that's their plan.
Anybody else? No, just rumors around the room.
Indeed, right? We are focusing our efforts on making the console work on mobile better, so that we only have to maintain one. But we get the question a lot, so keep asking, by the way. It's always a good question to get, even if we can't say yes. Right?
Yeah, that's actually where we get some of our support, is like if we see the question enough, and we really know that that's a feature that the community wants. So like Puff said, just don't, like, keep asking the question, and eventually, if
I think that might also be the case for the next question, right, Rachel?
Yeah, when will there be better tools to manage Firebase data beyond the browser interface?
Yeah, and I think that's a similar thing, right? We are trying to make the Firebase console the best place to manage your Firebase data. We might not always do the best place to manage your Firebase data for all use cases, right? We've seen some people from the community build extensions for Visual Studio Code, for example. Or you can see, right, there's plugins for Glitch and StackBlitz, right, that just work better in that context. And we love it if people create those. I don't think we are building a large suite of such types of other places to manage Firebase data. We like focusing our effort on making the Firebase console both a place to better manage your data and in more places have it work well. So as Sam said, like make it work better on mobile by reducing the JavaScript size significantly in the past half year or so.
One thing to throw in on that question, because maybe I'm reading it wrong, but I kind of also read it as a question about like the data viewers for our databases and how many people find them to be, less powerful than what you get with a SQL database that you're maybe used to. First of all, the Firebase community has taken up this call pretty strongly. If you Google this, there are so many good third-party tools that sit on top of ours. One of them, FlameLink, just had a guest blog post on the Firebase blog last week. They're very focused on a certain use case, but there's tons of different Firebase data management tools. And the other thing is with the local emulator suite, we are really experimenting with different local UIs. And I think a lot of the times when people want to manage their data, it's during development, and the emulator suite, we can take all your wild feature requests for data management UIs that probably will never make it into the production console. So send us a feature request on GitHub if that would help.
I want that table view in the console, Sam. I want that table view in the console.
And another interpretation of data that I understood is, I think that in addition to console, there are a lot of public APIs right now, RESTful APIs that you can use directly to manipulate data. So that's another way for you to build automation on top of outside of the UI.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, especially we just released the real-time database, a whole management API that you can do a lot of management tasks for real-time database. So if you're into that, that's there. And I know that there's a lot of actual, like your backend Firebase data, there's a whole management at the Firebase level, just that you can manage a lot of your stuff programmatically there with RESTful APIs and everything. So there's a lot of stuff that we're building out slowly but surely where you don't ever have to go into the console to do some things for your for some of your management tasks.
Exactly. Yeah, the console is mostly focused on development tasks, right, and not as much on management tasks. I actually realized as everyone was giving their take also is that analytics now has I think it's called the data API that allows you to get the analytics chart data out of Firebase also with an API, and that was a long-standing request that. Honestly, I know about because the engineers reached out to me and said, "Hey, can you promote this API on Stack Overflow?" It's like there's so many APIs coming out for this type of behavior that we love seeing community build tools. Sam named a few, and yeah, we love seeing those for sure.
All right, let's ask a product-specific question real fast. So Cloud Firestore questions are a very popular question for Firebase. So for Cloud Firestore, what is the best pattern to reduce reads? I find myself often querying cache and catching exceptions when querying the server. So reducing reads with Cloud Firestore. I think there's some additional information we might want to supply for this as well. Who wants to raise their hand and answer a Cloud Firestore question?
I would like to leak something, which is always fun.
I was already wondering about that.
No, because that's what everybody comes to these panels for, is for the leaks.
Yep, for sure. Yeah.
We are working on a new feature that is nearing the time where we'll be asking you all to try it out, which is meant to address exactly this question. Basically, we're working on a feature that will allow you to build custom Firestore caches on your own servers or on your own CDNs, or even share them in local files to help you reduce the billing and performance impact of doing the same common queries over and over. Sounds a little vague, but it'd be easier to show you in code. So look out for that coming soon. We'll probably be soliciting alpha testers on Twitter and GitHub and stuff. So just look out for some noise about that. And if you miss it, it'll be available to everybody soon enough.
I'd actually like to hook into that one, Sam, because actually, right, a common approach I recommend for reducing the number of reads is essentially combining data from various documents into one place, right? So I often say you should model your screens in your documents. And that's today what I would still recommend. And what Sam is describing is actually a way to not need to do that anymore, to take all of that data, bundle it together, and then put that in your cache, right, as one thing, except of having, or right, instead of having to focus on all the separate document reads. But yeah, today I would recommend indeed modeling, right, if you on your homepage have 5 categories of each of which you show the 10 latest news articles, then instead of reading 50 documents, how about modeling that homepage as a document? That's the way I would do it today. So. And right, the most common example of that, of course, is the aggregators, right? We've all seen the articles about people counting, right, doing the sum of a value in each document. And if you do that from the client, then you're going to be reading all your documents. And right, the recommended way to do that in Firestore and in most NoSQL databases is to actually store the sum as a value in a document and then update it whenever you write the documents. And right, that's the same as when you store the query results in a document, or soon bundle them up and send them over to the client as one package. So, great question, by the way.
It is. We have another question about storing things, but this one is about videos and images with Firebase. How do you store images and videos with Firebase? Is there, like, I'm guessing they're asking if we have a product for that? And how to make retrieval faster. We have a great product for that. Anyone want to talk about it?
Sure. Yeah. So we actually have Firebase storage, which basically it just has buckets and whatnot where you can put in blob data and other things. So this is where you would put in your videos, put in your images. You can link back to references of that though into like your real-time database and Firestore. You can actually access that from functions as well. So if you need to do any kind of like back-end manipulation on those, you can do that sort of stuff as well. But you can access everything directly with an SDK that we have out there for Android and most other platforms as well.
Is there anything we want to note about retrieving faster? It's, I mean, implementation details, but
two small things. I mean, cloud storage buckets are plenty fast for many use cases, but in a really, really high traffic situation, it's faster and cheaper to use a CDN. Firebase hosting is such a CDN, so you can move your images there, or we have an integration where you can use cloud functions to sort of dynamically populate the CDN. The other thing is that cloud storage allows you to choose the location of your bucket, so make sure it's close to your users. Most of the latency that you see is the data going across the earth, and nobody has figured out how to make that faster yet.
Is there anything that we want to mention about locations? Speaking of data storage and locations of your data, not for cloud storage, but something that some people might have missed the announcement, which we're really excited about over in Firebase land that we finally launched. Puff, since you worked on it.
Real-time database. Who worked on that? Yeah, no, that is exciting, right? After, when did I start using Firebase? 2012, something like that, right? We finally now can offer real-time database in multiple locations. So we just last week opened a real-time database location in Western Europe 1, I think it's called, Belgium. And that means that you can now, right, if you must, you can store your user data in Europe, right, and it will never leave Europe. And if you want to, you can actually, provide users in that region a closer location, so a lower latency way to access their real-time data. Yeah, we're very happy with that. And right with real-time database, you can, if you're on a paid plan, you can have multiple database instances in a project. So you can put, right, some of them in the US, what the location is that we had before already. And right, you can put another location in Europe and actually store, right, within a single project, pick the right location for each user for storing their data. Really exciting. That was a long time coming. So.
Yeah, it was one of our biggest requests, and we were so excited when we were able to announce it last week. We're all celebrating within the Firebase, the Firebase team that was launching. It was one of our most fun email and shipped it emails that we got to the team. All right, we have an analytics question. This is probably actually one of our more common questions, is about Firebase analytics, Google Analytics for Firebase, Google Analytics 360, all of these kinds of like the analytics products that we have. What's the real cross-platform analytics that we should use for mobile and web? I can actually take a stab at this.
I was hoping you would, Rachel.
So one of the things that so you probably have seen all these different names float back and forth all over the place for the last like 4 or 5 years since like Firebase came out. I'd actually recommend, there's a really fun article by Todd Kerpelman about the different versions of analytics that have come out. I think it's on Medium. I think we should like prop up that article a little bit more often to show the different versions of analytics that have come out. So one of the things that was launched last year was changing from this like idea of like Google Analytics for Firebase into Firebase just being one of the integrations that you can do for Google Analytics. So Google Analytics actually launched like an SDK for mobile, for not just mobile apps, but also web apps just last year. So when you start using Firebase and you enable analytics in your Firebase project, and you have your mobile app and your web app, you can use our SDKs. You can have a JavaScript SDK that is integrated with Google Analytics. You can have your mobile SDKs, which are also integrated with Google Analytics. And so you can kind of just think of Google Analytics as one of these integrations that you can do with Firebase. So there is like Google Analytics 360 that you might see. Now that's a little bit more of a, oftentimes when people say that it's a little more expensive, it's a little bit more heavyweight. But with when you see in our console or you see in our docs something about Google Analytics, it actually works great for your mobile and web apps. So definitely just follow through and you can actually find in all of our docs, whenever we're talking about it, we're talking about Google Analytics. We're not talking about Google Analytics 360, if that helps to clarify a little bit there.
I actually think the analytics team just gave it an easier name for us, Rachel. GA4, right? Google Analytics 4 just came out, which is essentially what used to be called web and app properties, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And one of the things you said is from web and mobile apps. Another new API is actually that you can also now send events from server side. That was a request that we also got a lot from the Firebase team, and we always had to give you the workaround, which is, right, you do some calculation on your server and you want to report that to analytics. We taught you to then send it back to the phone and report it from there. That's not strictly needed anymore. It's still a valid approach, by the way, but you can now also report events directly from the server. I actually don't know what types of APIs we have yet. But, yeah,
so
it's
what
all, it's all getting closer together, right? That's what we're trying to do. So.
Yeah, you actually won't see it called Google Analytics 4 in most places in our Firebase docs, but over on the Google Analytics side and in their console, you might see that phrase, and that's what that is. It's just it's the property that will enable you to be able to use your web app properties. So that's what you might see over there in the Google Analytics land. And Todd might have to update his like article to include that as well, just to give everyone a nice little overview. And I actually was talking with someone the other day about putting something like that up on our Firebase docs, just to kind of give a nice little overview of that. So keep your eyes open for that, and we might plug that a little bit to make sure that folks can see that a little more details to get the story straight on those types of things. We have a question about Firebase ML. This is always an exciting thing. So will Firebase ML enable users to verify fake or real images? Specific feature request for Firebase ML. Anybody on the call want to?
I mean, I think, so there are kind of two parts to Firebase ML. One is MLKit, offline APIs that ship models that are kind of generic, right? So they can do just a small set of things. And then you can also kind of special purpose things, and you can also use Cloud ML, where we host your models that you write yourselves, create yourselves, and then you can use them in your apps. So I think for such images, for this use case, today we would recommend you write your own model.
Cool. Anybody else? I think that pretty much covered the span of Firebase ML. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure we mentioned in this whole thing is make sure to run through the questions and upvote them, especially if you're interested in a particular topic. Go through the Slido questions that have already been posted and hit your upvote on those. Because we have some folks here that can answer some really good questions. I'm kind of looking through the questions, see if there's anything new that we haven't talked about yet. Let's see. Actually, this is about the Android quick starts. Rosario is actually asking this. Rosario, you want to update those for us? See, let's see. Can we expect the Android quick starts to use modern Android architecture at some point? Sam, do you want to?
Yeah, the quick starts are, I guess I would be called the maintainer there, although Rosario has been doing a lot of the maintenance too, so he knows the answer to this question. But
yeah, seeding it for us.
We have been, no, they're a little out of date for sure, and we really want to update them. They are also, these quick starts are meant for the day one Firebase developers, so they also need to be really, really stable and not be based on anything like alpha or even beta. So we're very closely monitoring Jetpack Compose with the hopes that we can jump straight there, because we definitely missed a wave where we didn't fully embrace the Android architecture components as much as we should have. But hopefully we can just jump straight to Jetpack Compose and be on the bleeding edge again sometime in 2021 when that all stabilizes. But we're always welcome to, no improvement is bad. So if anybody wants to send a pull request, that's fine. But the big effort to update them all will be straight to Compose.
That's good, especially for folks that are waiting, what might be coming. Speaking of another, not so much bleeding edge any longer, as we all know, but Firebase support for Kotlin, which is not as, we call it the new hotness over in a Firebase world, but it hasn't been over in Android world for a long time. So what are we doing for Kotlin? Vlad, you want to talk about this?
Sure. Yeah, so the current support is definitely kind of just a starting point where we now have KTX libraries as like a vehicle to deliver more features. We have started thinking of what to do next there, and a few things that are kind of top of mind for us is like how do we better integrate with coroutines. We have some support where you can use our play services tasks with coroutines, but we want to see if we can improve that experience a bit. We also want to see what we can do with flow and state flow, which is the new kind of Kotlin reactive library. The other things, like Sam mentioned, we want to see what would be the experience for users who use Jetpack Compose to use things like Firestore, things like that. How would it play together? Yeah, so these are kind of the themes that come to mind. And yeah, maybe Sam, do you want to add anything there?
No, that's all great. And yeah, the KTX libraries, for those who don't know the acronym Kotlin extensions, they let us build cool Kotlin features without dropping Java support, because we're not dropping Java support anytime soon, but we want to build on top.
Yeah, you'll see Kotlin over the next several months getting more and more pervasive throughout all of our documentation, all of our interfaces, like the Firebase Assistant and Android Studio, all these types of places. You'll see Kotlin pop up more and more, and we're making sure that it is it's a first-class citizen on our with our resources. All right. So this is a question about API keys. There's actually a new page on our Firebase docs that talks about API keys to give you a little more context on API keys, but this is about downloading the Google Services JSON file from the Firebase console, and it pulls in 2 API keys, a generated key from Firebase and another is our places key. To configure which keys are used. So yes, Sam, you look like you want to answer it, or you don't want to answer it, maybe? No. That face is, I don't want to answer this.
My answer is basically the Google Services JSON file is meant to be a convenience, and if it's inconvenient for you, don't use it. All it does is help you call Firebase initialize app, which one of the arguments to that is an API key. You can just call that yourself and stop fiddling with the JSON file. It would be nice if we let you, tell us more about which API key you wanted to use, but it's probably not that smart, the plugin. So just don't use the plugin. And if you Google Firebase without Google Services plugin, there are some articles that just tell you how to take the JSON and basically do the plugins work with your eyes and just call initialize app yourself.
Yeah. This has recently been more and more top of mind for us. So Sam and I are actually actively working on some things to give a little more guidance on these kinds of things. So yeah, we understand that this is something that's a question for a lot of folks out there. All right, next question.
I would add to this one is that please file an issue on GitHub for this. We would have our maintainers of the plugin take a look and see maybe it's an edge case that you're facing.
All right, let's see. This one's about the emulator. Can you talk about configuring cloud function tests to run against the emulator?
Sure. I don't think this is Android specific, but basically the emulator suite is a bunch of, as I mentioned before, local services that emulate Firebase backend services on your computer, namely real-time database, Firestore, Cloud Functions, and Firebase authentication and hosting. And they all talk to each other. So what you want to do if you want to test Cloud Functions, let's say your Cloud Functions trigger off of Cloud Firestore, then you want to load up both those emulators You tell your Android app to just talk to the Firestore emulator, and the functions emulator will run the functions that would normally run in production. So you need to run multiple emulators at once to get the most use out of it. And each Android SDK has a use emulator method that you can call to tell your app, like, I would like to connect this service to the emulator. So you can mix and match. You can have your storage talk to production and emulate Firestore if that's what you're testing. We just recommend writing all these as, they're kind of like integration tests because you're talking to the emulator, but you can essentially do unit tests because the emulator is super fast. It's a local network.
Anybody else want to speak anything at emulators while we're here and talking about emulators? Anything specific? Something just came out for emulators that a lot of people were asking about.
Authentication emulator, which I mentioned briefly, but like literally our #1 feature request, maybe in Firebase ever. Everybody wanted that so badly. So it makes it a lot safer to use all the other emulators because now it's even your user tokens never leave the device, never leave your computer.
What's the next emulator that we're working on right now, Sam?
The next emulator will be storage for sure. And after that, we don't have any like definitively planned emulators. That seems to be the only other one people are really asking for that's possible to emulate. Everybody wants an FCM emulator, but that's actually not possible. So storage is next.
Yeah, so if you used the emulators before and you didn't have that auth and you like just decided, oh, it's not worth it, go back and check them out because now the auth is there and it's one of the nicer ones to hook everything else up together. So it's definitely a big piece of the puzzle falling into place. Let's see. We have actually something here about auth. Let's see. This is kind of a long question, but let's say you enabled authentication with Firebase anonymously, so you use anonymous auth, and you're using Firestore with a malicious user could exploit that to bring your bill up and try to run you out of business. Okay, so what's the best way to protect against malicious users who are using anonymous authentication?
I'll probably take a first stab at that one. Security rules are your first line of defense against malicious users. So I'm trying to think, what's the best way to think of them, right? Firebase is unique in that, or unique, but is uncommon in that we allow your application code on the user's device to talk directly to our databases. And that gives you enormous power to just write Android code, right, and have a cloud database. That also means that, right, you have the responsibility to secure your database differently than you might have done in a more traditional 3-tier application, right? And that is Firebase security rules. These are rules that are automatically enforced for your database, Cloud Firestore, cloud storage for Firebase, or real-time database on the Firebase servers. So there's no way for anyone to get by those rules. And there you can do all kinds of things, from simple data validation, which actually is the best way to deter most malicious users already, because many malicious users are not looking for a specific target, they're looking for an easy target, right? So you don't have to be the most secure database, you have to be more secure than others. So that's a great way to get started, but you can actually do more things. For example, I answered a question or I actually wrote a question also on Stack Overflow once about how to implement a write rate limit on Firestore in security rules. Not necessarily easy to do, but definitely possible. Beyond that, there are, of course, other things you can do. But honestly, try to always compare to what would happen if you go for your more traditional alternative 3-tier implementation, right? Then you would have something on a server running that then talks to the database. The same question applies there. What happens if they are hammering your server? Did you actually limit how much you then read from the database? And you can, and we can too. Right, you can do similar things in security rules. The other thing there is if you do get hacked, always reach out to Firebase support. We can help you in many cases, either helping you, sorry, I'm seeing something pop up here. We can help you recover from the situation. We can help you potentially quickly secure your database, not in all cases. And we can also help you at times dealing with the consequences. Did I say that correctly, Paul?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't want to misrepresent what support does here. So.
Oh yeah, pretty much everything.
Okay.
Actually, now that Paul just was talking, maybe you can tell us a little bit. Someone says, anybody interested in Firebase and Flutter? Is there a relationship there, Paul?
Yes. So we actually have the Flutter, or is it Flutter Fire? I can never remember the order on them. But there's a plugin up on GitHub. So we're covering a good chunk of the features that are there, available in Firebase, working with Flutter. Oops. What else there? It also does work with like web and iOS and all that good stuff, just kind of as a part of being with Flutter. Puffelen actually already gave a talk as well about 2 weeks ago for the Firebase Dev Summit, just a zero to app, how to get started from pretty much nothing to having this whole little polling voting app thing up online as well. And we've also been adding a whole bunch of content around Flutter and that sort of stuff up on Medium as well.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those features.
Oh, sorry?
No, I was just saying I've seen a lot of those articles going up through Medium.
Yep. Yeah, we actually have a whole section for it now. So it's kind of moving up in its little spot in the world.
And that live coding one, that was from the Firebase Summit, right? So if you just look on YouTube, you can find it via the as a Firebase Summit.
If you give me 5 minutes, there will be a bit.ly/firevotes.
Anybody else want to say anything about? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think that talk is actually the second most recent up on the Firebase channel right now.
And bit.ly/firevotes is now a short link for that.
Firevotes. I like that. Everything fire or something.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think this next one, unless someone has read it and knows exactly, we may need more details about what's going on in your lab. After the Crashlytics upgrade, we see crash-free stats, but are not getting the actual crash reports.
Write to support and ask for Paul. Okay, don't actually ask for Paul. He gets enough. But write to support. Support is the only, we're careful about your data. None of us here can just go prying, but support can if you let them look into the problem.
Yeah, I think on the Android SDK side, so we've had a bunch of issues, like a few issues like this, and we've been kind of fixing them. So mostly like the new Crashlytics SDK is as reliable as the old one, but the thing about Crashlytics is that it is working at a time when the app is crashing. So we definitely may have missed some edge cases that maybe are not being handled correctly. And if that is the case, please give us the details, and we'll try to repro and fix.
Definitely. Anybody want to give a quick top 3 points for best practices for designing the database?
The easiest one is to watch Todd Kerpelman's Get to Know Cloud Firestore video series. So that's firestore.video, if I remember correctly. That's a short URL, but it's also on youtube.com/Firebase and then Get to Know Cloud Firestore. It's now, I think, 14, 15 episodes or something. Spend a day or two on it. It's well worth the time. Plus, it's actually really entertaining because the database Robin Williams is also funny, in addition to being a great explainer. So that would be my #1 recommendation. If you're using Root Database, if you're using Root Database, there's an older series by David East, Firebase for SQL developers, that I would also highly recommend in that case.
Anybody else have any recommendations for folks needing to learn best practices? Those are my top 2 places I go. But all right, this is another question about improving the Firebase Crashlytics dashboard or just the console in general. Yeah, the new integration with BigQuery that went up. Yep. I don't know anything specific about this. Same information in the regular dashboard.
Let me give an annoying answer. Are there plans to improve? Yes, that's all we do. There's a big team and they come to work every day. Will we make the improvements that you specifically want? Only if you request them specifically. So go where Paul said before, file a feature request. That's how they decide what to do. They released that template, right, because they thought it'd be useful. If you think that template needs to be pushed up into the console, tell them enough times and they'll probably do it.
Okay. We're actually now seeing that we were supposed to end about 10 minutes ago, but we had so many questions, we just kept on going. So sorry if we overran into some of your other sessions. But like we said, we tried to get to as many questions that you all had as possible. We're going to get these questions back from droidCon, and we'll be able to answer hopefully some of the questions that we didn't get to in some of our other forums. So make sure that you keep a lookout on like Ask Firebase and places like that, and you might actually see some of your questions be answered in places like that. Thank you all for joining us and asking all these questions from our team. And thank you for our panelists. So Sam, Paul, Puff, and Vlad, thank you so much for answering all these questions. Some of them were really tough. And thank you for droidCon for having us. And we hope to see you all at different events, virtual events, and hopefully one day soon live events again.